Good afternoon, students. Uh, so, welcome again to our English class. I hope all of you are doing good. And in today's class, we will be talking about language of business. Like in our previous lesson, we were talking about language of advertisement. So, we have completed that. We have done some of the activities, and in today's lesson we will be doing the language of business, right? So basically you students have fair idea what language of business actually is, right? You know how to work with English varieties, how to work with registers, right? How to deal with questions. So in this class, right, the learning objective of this lesson is that by the end of the class, students should be able to define what is language of business, right? Identify its purpose, its mode, the tone of the sample, the jargons, the technical terms that is being used in the language of business, and following by the linguistic features and non-linguistic features, right? So this is very important because this is a 100% question in the final exam, right? Well, from my perspective, I would say that English paper is not complete without varieties, right? When we talk about English papers, varieties is a section that is a must, right? So in that section, language of business may be one of its part. It may come in the exam, right? And students, I must tell you that this is the register which is very easy and it is simple to understand, right? Language of business is very simple to understand, right? Excuse me. So moving on, let's begin with our lesson. I hope every one of you sitting here have your notebook with you. Please open your English communication book, in varieties section, and 10 to page on the topic language of business. So to start off with, what is language of business? Basically, language of business is a formal language that is used by the business firms to manage their business, right? Finance it's basically it is excuse me. It is used by the managers to communicate with their financial and economic information with the parties and shareholders. It is basically used by the managers of the firm, right? It is used to share information with the parties and the financial officers. So this comes in terms of business. When we do business, right, we must make sure that we know how language of business works, right? It has some what you call that, it has some stanzas, right? Some stanzas. For example, the language of business tone, right? It has the purpose, right? Every register that we study, it has a purpose, right? Any register we study, it has a purpose, right? So there is a purpose of doing language of business, and for that there is a mode, right? Mode is simply how it is portrayed, right? For example, some of the registers, some of the language, they are spoken, right? Where some are written, right? Some are spoken, some are written. So so firstly, the first feature of this language of business is purpose, right? So the purpose of this language of business is basically the purpose of this language of business is to instruct or to inform, right? Maybe some it depends on the context, right? It depends on the context, right? In some case, students, in some case, the language of business purpose is to instruct the financial officers or the third parties or the parties which are involved or the shareholders, right? It is for some purpose, it is for instructing, right? And in other context, it is for informing. Like for the good example can I give is that I am running a business, right? If you are running a business and I am the stakeholder, or I am a shareholder, or I am a financial officer, right? So you are the manager, right? Let's take it that way. This is a simple example which you will understand. So example, you are a manager, right? So you will tell me what to do. For example, you will tell me, okay, you have to prepare a check and give it to that company. So that in that context, the purpose of this language of business is to instruct. You are instructing me to do something, right? You are instructing me to do something, like you are instructing me to give a check to a particular company, right? So in that context, the purpose of that language is instructing, right? And in other context, right? See, for example, you are a manager and I'm your financial officer, I'm your CEO, or I'm your stakeholder, right? For example, this company is buying shares, right? So there is a board meeting, right? There's a board meeting, and the information is being given in that board meeting, right? That our company will be buying shares. So in that context, right? In that context, the purpose of this register, this language of business would be informing. Some language of businesses are some of the mode of what language of businesses is actually conducted is mostly written and spoken, right? It depends on the context. If there is a board meeting, then it is spoken, right? And if it's to inform the general public, then it will be in written, right? For example, they will publish a thing in publish an article in newspaper that will inform the general public, right? Or that will instruct. Simply it is spoken or written. So the tone, right? When we come to the tone, this is very important part, right? When we look at the tone must be formal, right? For example, previously we have talked about language of religion, language of advertisement, right? In language of advertisement, the tone can be informal, right? You can use informal tone in language of advertisement, but in language of business, you cannot use informal tone, right? When you will use informal tone, you will make the context is basically will not match, right? Are you getting what I'm trying to say, right? For example, there is a board meeting and you use informal tone, that will definitely not good. That will definitely tell your reputation that where are you standing, right? So the tone of this language of business is basically formal tone. It is a formal process, right? It goes through formal. It is a polite process, right? Formal process. And it is polite when providing information, right? For example, if a company is providing information, the company will be very polite, right? It will be very polite. They will be very polite. So moving on, jargons. How many of you know what jargon is? Anyone? No. In previous lesson we have learned what jargon is. Jargon is a technical term that is used in the sample, right? For in this context, we are talking about business jargons. Why we are talking about business jargons? Because we are studying language of business. So in language of business, we need to know the business jargons. Jargons are the technical terms, right? One of the example is policies, right? One of the example is policies, memorandum, that is the business jargons, right? For legal jargons, it is license and contracts, right? For example, you are gaining license from somewhere, so that jargons is a technical term. As soon as you hear that word, the thing comes in your mind that what is going on, right? For example, if you hear the word tender, right? If you hear the word tender, the thing comes in your mind that something is going on tender, right? So that comes under business, right? Jargons are simply the words that are used, right? Is the technical words that are used to give more information about the register, right? So there is I have given 2 or 3 examples of business jargons, legal jargons, and commercial jargons. Commercial jargons is basically interest and tender. So when we talk about commercial, we talk about buying and selling things, right? So for example, when we hear tender, oh, we know it's a commercial jargon, right? It deals with something we buy or something is being sold, so we have to apply for a tender, right? It's pretty simple, right? It's pretty clear. Now moving on, every language that we studies, every register that we studies, there is two very important feature in that, right? Firstly, the linguistic feature, and secondly, the non-linguistic feature. These two features plays the vital role in any of the register we study. Hence, in this language of business register, firstly we will be talking about linguistic features. Right? What are some of the linguistic features? Basically, linguistic features, it deals with language, right? It deals with language, vocabularies, jargons, right? The use of words, right? Phrases, sentences, right? And voice, passive voice, active voice, what sentences are being used in that sample, like simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, all those things, phrases, right? So basically, first, vocabulary. It is very important that the vocabulary we use in the sample, it is understandable and it is clear, right? It is clear, right? The purpose for the vocabulary is to give reference, right? For clear and specific reference, we need to use vocabularies, right? So there is another feature that is business jargons, right? Simply just earlier I have told you that what jargons is it is the technical term that is being used, right? So business jargons makes the tone formal. It simply makes the tone formal, right? Example, stakeholders, financial economy, right? Nouns, right? The use of nouns, right? Phrases, right? Used as the formula in business or letters, right? When you write letters, you have to use good phrases. And thirdly, the sentence structure. You should keep in mind that the sentence structure should be clear, right? When you're writing a sentence, when you're writing a particular sentence, if in the language of business, if your sentence is broken, then it will not make any sense, right? So it is very important to know that with what type of sentence you are using when you're writing a language of business, right? For example, you are writing a letter to another company, or you are writing a proposal for something, right? And you use broken English in that, broken sentence in that letter. So just imagine what the other party will think, right? You need to include simple sentence, right? The purpose of simple sentence, right, is to get readers attention, right? You need to use simple sentence, right? And lastly, we'll be talking about non-linguistic features, right? Non-linguistic features are the bold prints, right? One paragraph, the paragraph, the organization of the paragraph, how the paragraph is organized, right? And the templates. In this language of business, these are some of the things. The bold heading and subheading, right? It is eye-catching. The brackets, the diagrams that we use, right? And enumeration in the form of data, time, dates, etc. are effective for clarification papers, right? It is very important for clarification papers, right? I hope everything is clear, right? After this, I'll be distributing handouts, right? So our summary for today, that we have covered the language of business, and it was short, simple, and it was very clear, right? I have explained very well. I hope you have noted down the important points, and we have also covered the different features of language of business, right? So yeah, that was the class for today. I'll be giving worksheets that you'll do later, right? Thank you very much for your cooperation, students.